Hey guys, Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina, and it's time for that Sunday night live stream show. Welcome to the Sunday night live stream show. We're going to be talking fishing, answering your questions, and talking about what's going on now, what's coming up, talking about the weather, show you photos of what we're catching, plus we're giving away free fishing trips. That's right, free fishing trips, $1,500 in free fishing trips. To be exact, we're going to be giving away a 5-hour half day for 2, a 10-hour all day for 2, and a 39-hour for 1 lucky winner. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Remember, in order to get an opportunity to win, you do have to go to Facebook, find the Hubbard's Marina page, and then find the live video, like, comment. All you have to do is comment one time. It helps us if you like the live stream as well, and always helps if you follow the page as well. But all you have to do is comment once on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream. You're entered for a chance to win. You can watch on YouTube. You can watch on Trovo, on Twitch, on TikTok, on Instagram, even on Kick now as well. All you have to do is comment once on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream. Then watch the entire show live, because randomly throughout the show we're going to do those giveaways. You've got 5 minutes or less to claim your free trip. So you have to comment once on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream, watch the show live, then if you're picked as one of the lucky winners, your name pops up on the screen, I announce your name. That's when you've got 5 minutes or less to text us your full home address to claim your free trip. That's how it works. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Thanks for being a part of our Hubbard's Marina family and joining us for our Sunday night live stream show. Also, want to make sure we give a shout out to our friends over at Gator Jim's Tackle, 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Pete. If you haven't stopped by to see our friends over at Gator Jim's, you're missing out. Huge selection, killer deals, great people. Floor to ceiling, all the way around the tackle shop is just packed. So they've got it all, plus, again, killer deals. They buy in bulk, and they pass those deals along to you. So stop by and see our friends over at Gator Jim's Tackle. Tell them Hubbard's Marina sent you. Really cool place. Again, 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Pete. Also want to make sure we give a shout out to all of our supporters out there in our supporters group. We appreciate our supporters family helping to fuel the show. Remember, if you join as a supporter, it's only $4.99 a month, cheaper than a cup of coffee. You get a whole month in our supporters group. That gives you behind the scenes access to our private supporters group, more community, more behind the scenes info, up-to-date info, plus a supporters after show we do every Sunday night after the main live show as well. So check out the supporters group. And then also want to make sure we're giving a shout out to all those sending stars. If you're watching on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, Trovo, Twitch, Kick, stars are a way for those watching on Facebook to show their support and help fuel the show. It really helps us out. Jason Richmond with 200 stars, Scott Flynn, Dave Decatur. We had Jason Richmond again, Angel Perez with a big 500, Phil Battisto, Ryan Welser, Todd Stutzman, Mick Higgins. We had Larry White with a big 1,000, Jeff Reedy with a big 1,200. Thanks, buddy. Stephen Batchelor, what's up, buddy? Robert Riggs as well, plus Daryl Geist and Robert Bush. Appreciate all those stars, y'all. It definitely helps us out, helps fuel the show, and helps keep us going and doing what we love here Sunday nights. So thanks for being a part of it, y'all, and helping to come along on Sunday nights. All right. Also, want to make sure that you comment. If you're watching on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're watching, make sure you comment. Also, if you have questions that you want answered live during the show, you have to text us your questions. The phone number there is at the bottom of the screen, 727-393-1947. You text us your questions. The comments, they go really fast. We're streaming to so many different Facebook pages, so many different platforms. It's hard to see all the comments. So if you have a question you want answered live during the show, text it to the phone number at the bottom of the screen. Again, 727-393-1947. Don Shewitt, what's up, buddy? Appreciate those 800 stars. Angel Perez with a big 1,200. Thank you, Angel. And Gary Camage, what's up, man? All right, With that, let's get into the photos and show you guys the photos of what we've been catching out there. We got some photos inshore, then we're going to work our way near shore and offshore and show you guys what we're catching a little bit deeper. All right, first things first, inshore photos. A lot of black drum as of late. Surprisingly good numbers of black drum moving around the different flats, dock lines. We're seeing a few pompano here and there, which is pretty cool to see. We're seeing a lot of jack crevalles starting to show up. The jacks are starting to get a little bit more active. A couple mangroves around. But the redfish action has been pretty darn steady. And this is that time of year, your kind of last chance for those big numbers and big concentrations of redfish. Here over the next couple weeks, they start thinning out a little bit as that water starts to warm. So if you want a chance for some redfish, now is a good time to do it the next couple weeks. As we move into March, especially April, that water starts to warm up and the snooks start to really dominate the inshore report compared to the redfish. But overall, seeing a lot of redfish from the dock lines to the bridges to the mangrove shorelines, oyster bars, grass flats. All real good redfish action right now. We were talking about it on the Sunday night or a Saturday morning radio show. They were talking about ways to find redfish out there on the flats. A lot of the tournaments guys throw those long casts with those topwater lures and help just to try to get a redfish to hit on it. And once you see a redfish kind of follow or charge at one of those top waters, you know where the redfish are. Then you can follow up with a soft plastic or a gold spoon and get them to eat, which was a pretty interesting tactic and a good way to work a flat and find those redfish feeding actively. Also, some sheep's head action has been pretty good around the area. Virtually any hard structure right now, dock, pier, bridge, jetty, rock piles holding the sheeps. We're seeing some of the snook. Our buddy John, of course, is catching some snook. The snook action has been a little bit tougher. It's been a little bit confusing weather-wise to the snook. It warmed up. They started to come out. Then it got cold. We got a cold front today. So the snook are trying to figure out what end is up right now. But they're still pretty far back in the upper bay and back bay waters, tucked up there to the mouth of the rivers, the creeks, the bayous. We're seeing a lot more of those snook in the upper back bay areas. A few stone crabs moving around. Some people getting some nice stone crab action. Remember, stone crab season is open until May 15th. Also, a couple of early tarpon in the back bay, upper bay waters. It's on the doorstep. Tarpon season is, so pretty exciting there. Trout action has been really steady throughout the area. The trout are everywhere, from the beaches to the bridges to the passes to the docks to the mangroves to the shorelines, all the way into the back bay and upper bay waters. So great time for some trout, and seeing some bigger average size trout as well, which is always good to see. But as you can tell from the photos, trout are plentiful right now. It is amazing. That's a nice size trout right there. Some solid fish around the area. All right, now let's work our way near shore and show you guys what we're catching a little bit deeper out there in the near shore and offshore waters. All right, as we pull those up, it was really calm. Look at the background of this photo. It is like a lake, a pool, if you will. There was nothing moving on the water there last week, and it really, for about a 2-week period, it was just as good as it gets. Doesn't get any calmer. Now all of a sudden the water, the wind has really picked up, and it's starting to get a little bit more bumpy on us this week. But we're going to talk about the weather here in a little bit. The hogfish bite's going pretty well, though. We're catching some really nice hogfish. They're a little hit and miss, but overall seeing some really good numbers of the hogfish and some pretty decent sizes as well, which is always good to see. Occasionally a cobia has been caught lately, some catch and release gag grouper action, of course. And look at the size of that gag grouper on the jig, of all things. Nice fish, Lance Hall, from the Extreme Trip. The Extreme Trip was really doing well. That weather was so calm and nice and allowed us to get out there to those fish and really have a good time. It's been a little bit more difficult the last couple days with that bumpier condition, but hopefully we'll be able to get out there and enjoy some nice fishing opportunities. The offshore bite was stellar for us in that calm condition, as you can tell from these photos. And it's been a little bit more tricky the last couple of days to get offshore to them. But hopefully we'll get a chance this week. And again, we're going to talk about that weather here in a second. But look at all these keeper red grouper. Remember, red grouper season is open until the end of May probably this year. So we got a few more months to capitalize on those red grouper. Then these big red snapper are going to open up June 1st. They should be open all the way until probably September, I would guess, for us. The private rec season is going to be super long as well. So red snapper season this year should be pretty long. Whereas the red grouper season is probably going to close end of May, unfortunately. All right, so we showed you the photos. Let's get right into the weather and show you guys what's happening weather-wise. We're going to go over to hubbardsmarina.com. We're going to hit the fishing trips, and then we're going to hit weather links. Second tab down. Let's start in the 5 and 10-hour forecast area. And you can tell the winds are up. This was all super dark blue for the whole 10-day period for like 2 periods in a row, like almost 20 days. It was just gorgeous. And all of a sudden, this past week, it went from dark blue to these light greens and yellows, unfortunately. So definitely back into a more typical kind of what I would like to say is a springtime pattern where we get these cold fronts, but they don't quite make it down. It's not really a strong cold front. It doesn't really change the weather too much for us, but it's enough to really get that barometric pressure moving, get those pressure ridge builds, and get that wind kind of picked up. And that's what's happening here today. We saw today is Sunday. We saw a really stiff south wind. But the forecast was wrong again for like the 4th day in a row. It was more of a southwest wind for most of the morning, and then it kind of shifted out of the southeast, and then kind of came out of the north and northeast. So the forecast was super off today. It wasn't quite as windy as they said as well, which was interesting. But tomorrow it should be calming down a little bit wind-wise, but it's going to be out of the north, so drier, cooler conditions. That barometer is going to be bottomed out. Tomorrow might be a little bit tougher. Then Tuesday's looking really nice. It calms down beautifully. Seas are less than 2 feet. It is a nice moderate wind. So Tuesday's looking like our best day for the next really 5 or 6 days. Wednesday, the wind picks up on us. The seas pick up on us a little bit. We got some rain Wednesday night. But they're calling like 60% chance, so it's going to scare everybody off of Wednesday, even though it's not going to rain until nighttime, which is always super frustrating. So Wednesday's okay because the winds are going to be high, but the seas will take time to pick up. So Tuesday looks good. Wednesday looks okay. Monday's probably going to be a little tough because of that north wind. And then Thursday, we've got a last quarter moon, and we've got a north wind again. A cold front there Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So Thursday's probably going to be pretty tough. It calms down a little bit, hopefully Friday, and then potentially over the weekend a little bit of rain, but not too terrible. So as you can see here, a north wind for almost 4 days, which isn't great for fishing, but kind of a good thing with all that questionable water to our south. So it looks like almost a north wind for 6 days. Interesting. This has changed since I looked at it last, but of course it is that time of year. This time of year, this springtime pattern, as I said, as I mentioned previous, the weather, actually, can you keep that page open, Josh? As I mentioned earlier, the weather forecast has been wrong 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, really. And this time of year, the weather becomes nearly impossible to predict because you have these cold fronts that push down, kind of stall and meander. You have these high pressures. You have these the multiple different pressure gradients working against each other to create these winds or lack of wind. So it becomes very hard for the computer models to digest those possible indices, and it really starts to show you. Let me show you, actually. It'll be easier to show you than try to explain it to you. We're going to hop back over to hubbardsmarina.com, again, under Fishing Trips Weather Links page. If you scroll down on the Weather Links page, we've got the buoys. Let's see here. Choose your buoy. I don't know if this is going to be the right buoy that I want to show. It is the right buoy. Look at that. Great. Dude, we do such a good job on our website, Josh. Congratulations, buddy. All right, so let me show you. This is a perfect example of why the weather sucks this time of year, why the weather forecast sucks this time of year. All right, so blue line, what the seas are actually doing. Blue line is what the seas are actually doing. What's up, Josh? So the blue line are what the seas are actually doing. Red line is the GFS forecast. Orange line is the Euro forecast. As you can tell today, what it actually did, that blue line is almost a foot lower than what was forecasted. So they forecasted something and they were almost a foot off, probably a little bit more than a foot. So they were calling for like 4 foot, 30 mile an hour, and today it was more like 3 foot, only about 20 mile an hour. So it wasn't nice, but it was nicer than they said. And same thing Saturday. You can see Saturday there's a pretty big discrepancy between the forecasts. Same thing Friday night. So really multiple days in a row, the forecast was over embellishing what was going to happen. Now, moving forward, you can see here, look at what happens Wednesday night. The Euro model is calling almost 6 foot seas, while the GFS model is calling 2 foot seas. So when you get those really big discrepancies in what 2 different forecast models are calling for, it's a surefire sign to let you know they don't know what's going to happen. So forecasts are really not accurate even the day of, because the last 3 days has proved that the forecasts have been off. But look at tomorrow. The forecasts are not in agreement. They're almost a foot apart. And then that continues all the way into Tuesday. Finally, Tuesday, they start to get agreement. They have a pretty good idea of what's happening Tuesday and Wednesday. But then look at Thursday, Friday. They have no idea what's going to happen. So this is a really cool tool that I like to use to try to keep an eye on what's happening now, what's hopefully going to happen in the next couple days, and it also gives you a good idea of how confident those weather forecasts are. Because when those lines are touching, that means all the models are in agreement, or at least the 2 models being shown here are in agreement. When they're really far apart, that means they don't know what's going to happen. So this time of year, it's so important to keep an eye out and really keep an eye on what's happening leading up to your trip, but also don't let your heart get broken. If you have a trip Friday and you look at the weather Monday and it's calling for nasty weather Friday, don't get your heart broken. Don't get too upset, because that forecast can change so much, and it's really not even accurate the day of, let alone a couple days out. So this time of year, it becomes super important to just keep checking the weather, keep an eye on it. And we're going to try, I'm going to do a better job of doing our morning videos. So I'm going to keep you guys up to date. So tune in to our morning live videos on Facebook and on YouTube. All right. So we talked about what we're catching now. We talked about the weather. We showed you the photos. It's time to get into some of your questions. Remember, if you have questions that you want to discuss, phone number is at the bottom of the screen. Phone number is at the bottom of the screen. That's how you text in your questions. If you comment a question, we can't see your question, so text it in if you have a question. Also, let's do our first giveaway of the night. We're going to give away let's do the 5-hour half day first. 5-hour half day, 1 lucky winner, 2 guests. 5-hour half day winner is... Rick Gadini from Trinity, Florida. Congratulations, Rick. You've got 5 minutes or less to text us your full home address to the phone number on the screen. That's how you claim your free trip. Remember, you got to comment once on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page. You got to watch the entire show live, and you got 5 minutes or less to text us your full home. Want to give a shout out to some star senders. We had Megali Garcia, David Wack, Destiny Hetz, Angie Darling with the big 1,000 stars, Sam Lang with the big 830. Appreciate you, buddy. Don Schuett with a big 800. Appreciate y'all and the stars. All right, let's get into some questions and see what questions you guys have. No questions yet?
Not that one.
Yeah, not that one. That one's an old one. I love watching the fishing updates on Bay News 9. So I do the fishing updates on Fox 13. Bay News 9 is a pretty cool radio or a pretty cool news station, but not as good as Fox 13. Just throwing that out there. As a starter fisherman in the Bay, where do I begin? We live at the top of the Bay, come out Channel A, and always seem to catch our catfish. So one thing you want to look for is moving water. If you're catching catfish, most likely the water you're fishing is not moving enough or not moving at all. So you want to get to an area where there's more moving water. Also, you want to get to an area where there's some grass flats. So let's pull up Google Maps, Josh. So as a inshore fisherman, you can find areas that, as an offshore fisherman, finding areas takes you have to get in a boat. You have to drive offshore, you have to have a bottom machine on, and you have to be paying attention to the bottom. As an inshore fisherman, you want to go catch some fish, you don't know the area that you're in, Google Maps, baby. It is the secret weapon. And if you want to take it up to a whole nother level and make it even better, download the Smart Fishing Spots app. Go to saltstrong.com/Hubbard, and you can get on the Saltstrong Smart Fishing Spots app. And that app is going to have everything you need and more. It's going to show you where the grass flats are, the mangroves are. It's going to show you updates. It's crazy. We can't pull it up in the show, I don't think. All right, so we can log into it. I have a login to it, by the way, but I don't know if we can show it on the computer. Oh, Mike's calling. All right, we're going to get into this. Maybe we can get into it with him. That'd be a good question. We'll give him this question. Ha! What's going on, Capt Mike? How are you, buddy?
I'm good, sir. I couldn't figure out why you weren't answering your phone.
I saw you called me. I was about to tell Josh, hey, might want to call Capt Mike over there. He's calling the wrong phone.
Exactly. So, just so excited to call you.
Yeah, it's been a little while. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm real good. Can't complain.
Nice.
Other than just trying to get over the hangover of Miami.
Yeah. So how was the boat show? What was the coolest thing you saw at the Miami International Boat Show this week?
Coolest thing I think I saw was the new 29 contender bay boat.
That is a big bay boat.
That's a big bay boat. Twin 300s, 70-plus miles an hour.
Crazy. Forward
seating, two giant live wells in it. It was pretty sick. That was pretty sick. Let's see, what else?
Wait, go back one. Josh just looked it up on their website, and it says it comes with a free Seakeeper if you get the 2025 model.
It does. Free Seakeeper.
Let's just throw in a $5,000 Seakeeper and make sure you never, ever feel a wave ever again. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It was a big contender and Seakeeper were partnered up at the show, and they were doing big Seakeeper specials on everything.
Yeah, someone like me and you can step on the side of the boat and lean off the side of the boat and it doesn't tip. It's wild. It shouldn't happen.
And Seakeeper has some kind of, and I've never run a boat with them, but they have like a Seakeeper trim tab package.
Yeah, I saw that.
I've never experienced it, but sounds really cool.
Yeah, it seems
where it adjusts on the fly. Yeah, adjust on the fly. You don't have to touch nothing. Mm-hmm. It handles it for you.
Keeps that bow steady.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really nice. So I know there was a couple of boats that yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're expensive, but good whiskey costs money. That's the way it works.
Yes, sir.
So that was probably the coolest thing I saw. Saw a bunch of my peeps, Rick Murphy and George Gods, Carter Andrews. Spent some time talking to him. Jay Withers. So some of the other TV guys, kind of chatted with them.
Is the International Boat Show as big as like ICAST, or is it half the size? Put it in perspective.
No, I would say it's about the same. I mean, if you consider that
all the boats
you have, and you have a whole nother water side.
True.
You've got the huge Miami Convention Center, which is covered, plus the upstairs, plus every little room. They've got, a lot of your destinations are there, Casa Vieja, and a bunch of your destinations from around the world. And they have a huge electronics room. And then obviously you have the huge main floor where you have all the boats inside. You have a lot of boats outside. Rockford Fosgate, my buddies from Rockford Fosgate were there.
Did they get the cops called
so
on them again?
They actually had to cut a deal with City Hall because their booth was right across the street from City Hall.
Nice.
So they cut a deal that they wouldn't cut things loose until after 4:30 in the afternoon, and then for the weekend they were free to let it eat.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they were shaking the windows in the City Hall building across the street when they were booming stuff. Didn't go over big the first time, I guess. But then when you figure, we had everything we had in the booth, we had in the water. So there was 8 or 9 boats.
That's crazy.
Trying to think, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I'm sorry, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 9 or 10 boats in the booth, and then we matched those with the boats in the water.
That's
now
cool.
imagine a lot of companies did that. That way, if somebody's walking around, they're like, "Hey, I really like this boat. Wish I could run it." You jump in a car, you're 7 minutes from the marina. We got you on the water for a test ride.
That's crazy.
So, and so if you put all that together, I would say it probably covers more square footage than iCast.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just a different concept. Yamaha,
so you can
Mercury,
just test drive
Suzuki.
all the boats when you're there?
Yeah. Well, depending on I don't know about all the
Do they
manufacturers,
do like a
but
credit score?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't even know
Just
that it
walk
matters.
up and be like, I'm going to test drive this boat right here.
Well, I don't think it's a test drive. You get to go for a ride.
Ah, okay.
I don't think you're driving. Like, hey, just bring it back. I mean, I don't think they do that. I think somebody goes with you.
We have to be very specific here, Mike.
I know, right? Light everybody up, get them all excited. I want to go test drive a pound. Right. Yeah, no, I should say you get to go on a ride.
All right.
To see if you like how it handles. Yeah, exactly.
So,
and I'll tell you, there wasn't a whole lot of wind down there, so I was thinking, I'm like, the bad part is all the boats are going to ride great because it's nice and calm.
Yeah.
You don't really know unless you test ride a boat in the snot. So
yeah. Well, how was the fishing before you guys went down to old Miami there?
Well, so the fishing here was really good. Pile of big redfish showed up.
Nice.
The snook were starting to chew a little bit better. The big trout were still chewing. Lots of small trout. So that bite was pretty solid. I fished down in Captiva for a day, doing a little filming with Ozzie Lessinger. We got snook, redfish, and trout all on mirror lures. Never threw a bait at a fish, all plastics. It was great. That was pretty cool. Bad part was we did see a little bit of red tide and could see it having a little bit of an effect down there. I did get reports today that there was some red tide on Anna Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Scott Moore said that they were out on the beach and it was a little ornery to the throat and eyes. So that big southwest wind wasn't helping us much today, but hopefully the north wind will kick in here and keep it at bay.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But yeah, I mean, fishing, no, not, it's really not. But, like Scott said, the beauty of the red tide is that if it doesn't, what always gets us in trouble, especially down in an area like Sarasota, is when it comes in 2 passes at the same time.
Yeah.
If it comes in 2 passes at the same time and then comes around the backside of the intercoastal, there's no place for them fish to get away.
Mm-hmm.
So if it just crawls up the coast, a lot of times those fish, a majority of those fish will be on the move.
Yeah.
So like he said, it moves fish around some and it can turn the bite on as well. So, even around the red tide that we ran into down in Captiva, the bite was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, really good. We just turned off the cameras and we're like, okay, hey, good trip. We're good. We don't need to beat up any more of your fish. So it was, and we put the drone up and we got some drone footage of like 1,000 redfish up on one flat. I mean, it was covered in giant redfish and different sizes too. I mean, we had fish from, well over 30 inches to 20, 22, 23 inches, all in the same school, all up on the same flat. So
I've got a good question for you here. I saw someone said I saw a lot of redfish last weekend, but couldn't get them to chew. What are you doing? You waiting out the tide? You're moving, throwing a different bait at them?
Well, it's kind of a tough. I mean, if the problem you have this time of year, this is really kind of interesting, and I was just going over this with my mate Josh, who's now a captain himself. and there's been a lot of fish in deep water. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what that tells you, if you find fish in deep water, that tells you those are probably new fish. Okay. They probably pushed in on this last move. What happens is when they first show up on the flats, okay, they've been in deep water forever. They're just not settled in yet.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll find a big school of fish up on the flat, and no matter what you do, cut bait, live bait, chum them, artificials, work the edges of them, they just don't settle down for a day or two. They just don't. I don't know what that transition is from deep water to shallow, but it takes them a while to chill out and relax. I don't know if it's the birds. I don't know if it's porpoises. I don't know, what it is, but it's been my experience through my years of doing this that, if you find a school and you're the first one on them and they just happen to show up, that day or the night before or something like that, they're usually really, really, really stubborn. Yeah, I don't know if it's the travel. I imagine it's the depth change. And a lot of times what you can do is you'll see it on the fish because they really won't transition color that quickly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of times that school that piles in from deep water, especially if they came from out at Egmont or
they're white
up at Anclote or something, they're really white. And they will stand out like a sore thumb if there's a pile of them on the flat. But and you'll come back in a day or two and those fish will have oranged up really nice and started darken up a little bit. And usually they settle down, and if nobody runs them over, you don't have some mullet guys or somebody up there, dropping net on them or anything, trying to catch the mullet. A lot of times you'll get those fish to eat a day or two later.
Interesting.
So I don't know why it is that way, but it's a lot of times they're just. So I've caught them when I think they're fairly fresh as well. But I would say a good 7 to 8 times out of 10 that you find a new school up on the flat, they just don't chew. The other thing I would say is a lot of times if you can't get them to eat anything, it's really the one thing they really don't turn down well is cut bait.
Yeah.
And I don't know what this. Yes, I don't know what this guy or gal's got was throwing at them. If you're throwing artificials and they just don't feel like chasing bait. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's better to just throw a cut bait up there and just let it sit and let just one, take his time, get all lazy and come over there and, suck it off the bottom. Sometimes they want a live bait that's moving, but they don't want to chase it. All you have to do is snip the tail a little bit or twist the tail, kind of slow that big white bait down so it can't get away as fast and they don't have to work that hard to get it. I wouldn't think that'd be an issue with the water temp being as cool. That's why I said what I said. I think they're probably new fish, if I had to guess. Because normally when the water temp's like this, they'll get into chase mood pretty easy. But you just never know. I mean, you got for the guys out there, you got better luck figuring out your bride or your girlfriend than you do fish. I'm just telling you. That's the way it works.
How that goes. But
yes, sir.
Another question was: we live at the top of the bay. We come out Channel A, and always seem to catch our catfish. We're new fishermen. What would a good spot be this time of year to catch anything other than catfish? Fresh bait.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know what kind of boat they're in, but Double Branch is choked full of fish right now.
Double
choked.
Branch. Heard about that.
And it depends on what they're using.
Okay.
If they're using dead bait and it's just sitting on the bottom and you're sitting in those channels on the bottom, you're probably going to catch a lot of catfish. Gotcha. If you get into Double Branch or even that channel that they're fishing in right now, somewhere in that channel, I guarantee you there's a pile of trout.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say that. Again, it's February, so I want to say that, but it got warm on us, so they might have got out of there, but normally this time of year, if you can get into those channels and just really slowly work a jig in the deep water and be super patient, cover the whole water column, that will eliminate your catfish. And if, through time and effort, you should be able to locate at least a school of trout in there, if not some redfish. All
right. Working Channel A you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Channel A's usually got a lot of fish in it too. If I go up that far, I want to get into Double Branch.
Okay.
And Double Branch isn't easy to get into, so you have to be in the right boat. You kind of have to know where the cut is. So it's not a great thing to do on low water unless you have that channel marked in your machine like some of us do.
Yeah.
Because it's a kind of a windy deal, and if you get off the channel on low water on either side, you're going to be there a while. So you have to be a little careful. But that channel A's got fish in it somewhere, guaranteed. This time of year, it's got fish in it. And I heard just through the grapevine, it's funny that a question would come in from up there. I heard to the north end of the bay has been tough.
Tough fishing.
I don't know why, and I don't know why that is, but I heard the north end's been just a little tough. And if I had to guess, I would guess because it warmed up.
Yeah.
I would think a lot of those fish probably transitioned a little bit. They probably up along the causeway or at the bridge now. They probably poked their nose out that far by now, if I had to guess. I mean, that's what you got to do.
The causeway, like the Courtney Campbell?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, the late, great Jim Plastic used to just absolutely wreck the snook and trout and redfish all along that causeway from the boat ramp up there all the way to the bridge. He used to wade fish that thing all the time. A lot of it at night or as the sun was setting, and he used to just absolutely pound them. And a lot of that's what happens is those fish that winter up in Channel A and Double Branch and Rocky Creek and all that stuff up there to the north end, all those fish start to pour out, and a lot of them go right to that causeway. They use that causeway because a lot of that edge has a deep channel. Yeah. Kind of like their beach.
Yeah, staging.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Because you got deep water, you got the bridge where a lot of bait's going to show up. There's a lot of things right there working.
Okay. So this is the time of year to fish that causeway heavy.
I would, and again, I would think it's actually, this is the time of year you should be back in the creeks. But it got warm.
Normally you would.
Right.
Yeah.
Normally it got warm. So, I mean, if they're not finding anything in A cut up there in Channel A, if they're not finding anything in Double Branch, my guess is that's where they went.
Good to know. Well, we appreciate you, Mike, as always.
No problem. You and Joshua have a good night. I appreciate the time, brother.
All right, man. You have a good one. See you, man.
You too. See you. Bye.
Bye. Always a pleasure talking to Capt Mike, and we had some good questions for him tonight lined up. So awesome stuff. Next question. Oh, we were talking about Google Maps. Let's go back to Google Maps and finish that conversation. So trying to find different areas to fish. So using Google Maps, you can easily get into an area like, say, Double Branch, like Capt Mike was talking about. And as you get in here, you're going to see a blue dot. And that blue dot is you. So you can take out your phone and just watch the blue dot move. You got to go really slowly because your phone GPS updates slowly. And it's not perfect, like if you had a GPS on your boat. But yes, very fishy area. Lots of fish back in here. Double Branch Bay. That's what Capt Mike was talking about. But a lot of these cuts should have fish in them. As Capt Mike was saying, working the cut using artificial lures like a DOA shrimp, a soft plastic, mirror lure provoker, all those different things. But yeah, you can use Google Maps. It shows you the little blue dot, and you can actually choose a feature where it shows you where your phone is pointing, and it will show you the top of your phone. So even if the water's super murky, you can get up here until the blue dot's right on this edge, and then you can turn on that feature and know which way you're oriented and be able to cast and fish these edges. That's what you're really looking for, is these edges, these little cuts. That's going to be where the fish are staged up and hiding. And it depends on the wind, and it depends on the tide and all that good stuff too. But lots of good areas to fish, and you can find all these good cuts and flats like fishing. Ooh, that looks really fishy right there. Ooh, nice little backside cut. Probably a little oyster bar right there. Woo! Fishing that whole edge with a trolling motor. Safety Harbor Pier. Oh yeah, I know a lot of people that fish up here. I went to a fishing conversation over here and had to watch people fishing out here, and I was like, man, that seems like a good fishing spot. And that's what I do. When I go to an area I don't know, I pull out Google Maps, and it's an easy way to find new areas. This looks really fishy in here too. All right, I'm going to get distracted. Back to the questions. How many rods can you bring per person on a 39-hour trip? There's not necessarily a hard and fast rule. We suggest 3. We ask no more than 5, but there's not a hard and fast rule. I don't count how many rods you bring, right? Do you need more than 5? No. Do you need, can you have less than 3 and be fine? Yes. 1 rod works, but some people, especially experienced anglers, will have multiple rods for multiple different things. Like on a 39-hour trip, if you really wanted to be fancy, you could have a trolling rod for trolling on the way out between spots. You could have a slow pitch rod. You could have a little pitch rod if you see a mahi-mahi, like a little spinning rod. Then you could have a mangrove snapper setup, like a 25, 35 pound drag reel with like a 15 to 20 pound or 30 or 40 pound rated rod. Then you could have like a 35 to 40 pound rated reel with a 30 to 50 pound rod with 50, 60 pound tests for your red snapper, your red grouper, and then you could have a big 80 pound class rod with 40, 50 pounds of drag and 80 pound or 100 pound line for the big gags and big amberjack, right? So you could have 5 rods there with a slow pitch set. That would be 6 with what I just listed there. So you could get a little overboard if you have a lot of specialty tackle and you wanted to bring something for everything. But I always tell people, if it's your first trip, pack light, take the bare essentials, and then find out what you need and don't need. The first trip always has a little bit of a learning curve, and you flatten that learning curve by watching the videos, by tuning into our live stream show and asking questions like you are now, and then also just talking to people on the trip, and go out there and try it, find out what you need, what you don't need, and dial it back from there. Did the 3 months, this is pertaining, the question was, did the 3-month East Coast get shut down? So I believe what they're asking about is Amendment 59, which is being proposed in the South Atlantic, and they're proposing closing down from Port Canaveral to the Florida-Georgia border for 3 months, December, January, and February, and that would essentially triple or 3 to 4 times length of their red snapper season. It would go from like 2 days to like 7 or 8 days, which closing down the entire fishery for 3 months to get a couple extra days of red snapper season seems a little outside the realm of believable or swallowable, but that's what's being proposed. Proposed rules take a very long time to become real regulations. So we've talked about it, we've gone in depth on it, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. To answer your question, no, it's not a rule yet. It probably will be, even if nothing stops it, they don't get sued, there's no government intervention, new federal government intervention, because remember, the federal government just shifted a lot, so that could stop it too. But if there's no federal government intervention, there's no lawsuits, and they just move forward of implementation, I would say it'd probably be 2026 or 2027 before that's actually a regulation. It's just a proposed rule. They have to go from proposed rule to transmission to final rule. There's a cooling off period. It takes a very long time. Next question. What is the best place to target mangrove snapper in the shipping channel? Channel, bridges, etc. And what's the best way to target them? So I don't fish in the bay myself, so we should have asked Capt Mike that question. But I would say, personally guessing, and from experience talking to other captains who fish the bay, there is a lot of little rock piles on the outside of the Skyway. Josh brought it up again, so we're going to do it right here. All right, Josh, I've got it open. So there's a lot of rock piles around the Skyway fishing pier. Yeah, you can see them. You can see them on Google Maps. So these are a little close to the pier. I don't really recommend fishing there because you would get in a little bit of hot water with the pier fishermen, but there's some really good rock piles right around the pier. There's some good rock piles all the way out the channel, but you have to be able to follow the channel and know where those are. There's also some really good rock piles along the shorelines here, and I'm not going to totally zoom in and show them to you because they are just that good, and my friends might kill me. But there's some really good rock piles all the way up and down the South Shore area, some mitigation sites, and there's some mitigation sites along the edge of the channel. So finding those deep water rock piles, and remember the Skyway channel, the shipping channel goes all the way up here, right? So you can follow that shipping channel, and there is a ton of really, really good mitigation sites, little rock piles on the edge of those shipping channels, because everywhere the shipping channel is nice and deep is everywhere they've cut that channel and made it deep. So that channel didn't get deep by itself, right? They went in there with dredges, and they cut the limestone, and they pile up the rocks on the edge of the channel. So there's a lot of really, really good mangrove snapper rock piles in the bay, but you got to know where they are. And then all the bridges, just any of the bridges, really. It's a little early for mangrove snapper in the bay. They'll get thicker as the water warms up, but definitely a lot of those Bay Area bridges. The Howard Franklin used to be really good in the middle of the summer from a lot of the guys talking about it, but unfortunately it's under construction right now, so I kind of ruined it. I would say the Skyway would be where I would target the mangroves, and the best way to fish them it's the same way as offshore, right? So you want to get those mangrove snapper excited. Offshore, we drop a lot of baits to bottom, so it kind of gets that chum line going naturally. But inshore, the best way to do it is to get set up at an end of an outgoing or end of an incoming, probably the end of an incoming. Get set up next to the structure. As the tide starts to slow and stop, you can chum with some of that sand, some of that glitter, some of that smelly stuff, a couple cut up thread fins or cut up greenbacks, and you can get that chum going. And then as this tide starts to turn and that water starts moving again, that chum, that smell is really going to get those fish fired up. And as its water starts moving, the fish will turn on. You'll have a few opportunities there to catch the mangroves. But once the tide really starts moving, it gets a little bit more tricky to target them, because you want to use light line, light lead, and it gets trickier as that water starts to move. You can use that same technique at the Johns Pass Bridge. The south side of the Johns Pass Bridge is super deep. There's some really big rocks there, and it's like 25, 30 foot deep, and it is stellar mangrove snapper fishing. I've seen kids pull 4 and 5 pound mangrove snapper out of there before. You just got to hit it at the right time of year as well. All right, next question. What do we got? Have you discovered any of the hurricanes have changed your spots? Definitely. A lot of spots have changed. Mostly near shore, and anything inside like 60, 70 foot. There's some areas that were hard bottom, now are sand bottom, and vice versa. When should be the most productive time for mangrove snappers on a 12-hour night trip? Generally, around the moon phases, we see them pretty heavily, and when the water warms up, we see more quantity. This time of year, we see more quality generally, but the weather's been a little bit tough for us as of late. What wind speed will you not go out? It depends on the trip, right? A half-day trip has a different threshold than a 39-hour trip, and a 12-hour stream has a different threshold than a 10-hour trip. So it's definitely different for every trip, wave height, wind speeds. But generally, a general rule of thumb is anything more than about 20, 25 mile an hour sustained is where we consider canceling trips, and anything more than 4 to 6 foot. But on, like, say, a half-day trip, 4 foot can make us cancel because it's different, right? So it depends, to answer the question. There's no hard and fast rule. Each trip is a little different. Fishing tonight, dock lights and passes. What should we be doing considering the cold water? Should we throw shrimp and slower baits, multits and greenies, assuming we find lights or seawalls? Right now, you're on the backside of a full moon, which is not the best time to dock light fish. But dock light fishing almost always produces fish, so I would still go. Not trying to talk you out of it, but it's definitely not prime time. New moon, around the new moon is the best time to dock light fish. Also in the summertime as well. This time of year, you got a lot of redfish and trout around those dock lights. I would be throwing free line shrimp on the edges. Or if you're not picking up anything up on the surface with a free line, a small split shot, get that shrimp to bottom. You might get some of those redfish. Redfish generally going to be on the bottom, on the edges of the light. trout are going to be up in the water column, and might see a snook or two if you're going far enough back into the upper bay and back bay waters. Look for the underwater lights. That's going to heat up the water a little bit and might make them a little bit more excited, and fish those salooner major and minors where you're going to see more actively feeding fish as well. But I would say probably your trout bite's going to be your best bite tonight, and if you catch a redfish or a snook, it'd be pretty exciting as well. But I would say trout, probably redfish next, maybe some snook. Unless you're fishing pretty far back in the bay, then you have a better chance for snook. Are there showers on the 39-hour trips? Yes, we do have showers on board. We do have a full galley, hot food, cold drinks, all that. You do have a bunk, so you have a spot to sleep. It is a boat restroom, so, I mean, don't think of it as like a hotel shower, right? But it is a really nice shower at the end of 20 hours of fishing, let me tell you. What is the best bait shop to buy 500 live shrimp in the St. Pete area? So what I would do is just simply, can you pause this, please, Jason or Josh? But if you wanted to buy 500 shrimp, I would call the bait shop ahead of time. And that's going to definitely help making sure they have the shrimp, and then also make it cheaper for you too. If you call ahead of time, it definitely helps, because it's not only going to help them get them early, but a lot of times if you buy like 1,000, the bait shop can set them aside for you and give you a bulk deal. If you just show up and say, I want 500 shrimp, they're going to charge you regular rate, and it's going to be very expensive. But like, we have people that call ahead to us and want to pick up 1,000 shrimp. They sell them by the 1,000, by the way. So if you bought 1,000 shrimp, we'd cut you a deal, and then you just come up and pick a whole bag up. So you could do that at local bait shops. Just call a local bait shop you deal with. Any bait shop that has shrimp is going to be able to order extra shrimp for you. All right, what fish do you regularly catch that have worms? I would say I would leave all that alone, Josh. It'll mess us up like it did last week, remember? Just leave it on default. Yeah. So red grouper sometimes have worms, and we just did a video. Is that up on our YouTube channel yet? I think it is. We're going to go to youtube.com and our Hubbard's Marina YouTube channel. We have a bunch of new videos coming out. Pretty cool stuff. All my kids' YouTube videos now. They always watch Signed In as Hubbard's. Let's see. New moon fishing. New moon versus full moon fishing was pretty cool. That was one of our newer videos. No, we don't have the red grouper worm video out yet. But ironically, you asked that because we just filmed a video about that and have it coming out on YouTube very soon. So I would say red grouper and amberjack are the two fish that we catch that do more often have worms compared to other fish. But the fish or the worms we run into are not dangerous. General cooking, handling, they're going to be safe to eat. You can cut them out if you want. Some people do. I don't. But it's up to you. Are robin fish good to eat? They look creepy, like half crab and half fish. I've never eaten one, and I don't know of anybody who has recommended it. But yeah, I don't know. You could be the first. All right, let's do a trip giveaway, and we'll try to knock out a few more of these questions before we close out. So we did a 5-hour half day for two. Let's give away our 10-hour all day for two guests. 10-hour all day for two guests. And then we will get into the last few questions here and then wrap things up. So 10-hour all day, one lucky winner, two guests. Let's see who the lucky winner is. Ryan Welser. Congratulations, Ryan. You've got a free 10-hour all day for two guests. Congrats, my brother. All right, next question. What to bring for a 12-hour extreme? We have on our website page, if you go to hubbardsmarina.com And right on our hubbardsmarina.com website page, click fishing trips, click trips, and then you can click on the 12-hour extreme trip. That's going to bring you to our 12-hour extreme page, and it's going to give you all the information, including recommended tackle, bait options, what you can catch, and it even has a video called How to Pack for a 12-Hour Extreme Trip. So there is a ton of information here, and it is really bountiful. So I would recommend checking out the website, and that's really going to fill you in on what you can bring and what you should bring and what you could lay off of or don't need as much of. But essentially, the 12-hour extreme, you want to pack light. You don't want to bring the whole kitchen sink. And this time of year for the 12-hour extreme, we're targeting those red grouper. You got a shot at some of those snapper species. So I would bring 1, maybe 2 rods. I would be fishing most of the trip with like my Daiwa Saltiga LD50, 40-pound drag, 50, 60-pound main line, probably a 60, 80, 60-pound leader, and I would be fishing double snells with a cut piece of thread fin and catching a lot of the mangrove snapper, vermilion snapper, porgies, almacos, maybe throwing down some big chunks of or big strips of squid or a cut bonita or a live pinfish on a single hook rig for some of the red grouper. You could do some slow pitch jig fishing for the red grouper and for some of the snapper species. That would be my go-to right now for a 12-hour extreme trip. We're hunting and pecking for those red grouper, catching a lot of other species mixed in with them for sure. All right, what other questions do we have here? Pulling it up. Bear with us. Catching a lot of spade fish around the docks and in the crab traps. Are they good to eat? You could eat some spade fish, I've heard. I don't recommend it. Their meat is definitely a little bit more strong flavored, a little bit darker. But I've heard people eating them, and I've heard they were good. I've only ever used them for bait. Personally, they make really good amberjack bait when they're a little bit like this size. I've used even bigger ones before, but that's not a lot of fun. 10 out of 10 don't recommend. But yeah, they make really good amberjack bait. What tide do you think would be better for fishing John's Pass? It depends on what you want to catch, right? This time of year, the incoming tide has been pretty good for some of those redfish and trout. Outgoing tide, we've been seeing some more of those same species, but we're also seeing some of the sheep's head moving along the jetty. I would imagine pretty soon here we'll see those snooks start to show up as water temperatures continue to climb. Also, the mackerel should be back. It's water temps 68 at Egmont, another 4 or 5 degrees. We'll start to see the mackerel back on the jetties too. So it depends on what you want to catch and when you're getting out there. Incoming tide's good for the pompano as well. The pompano bite has started, but it's been a little soft. What other questions do we have here? Are charters allowed red grouper deeper than... No. Red grouper... charters and recreational fishermen are the same. We take recreational people fishing. The only time that charter boats or federal for hire, which is charter boats and party boats, have different regulations from average Joe recreational fishermen, the only time is red snapper. That's it. The only species. Every other species regulations are the same. The 20 fathom closure is on right now, which means you can't keep shallow water grouper complex beyond 20 fathoms or 120 foot. But there are specific coordinates, so you can plug those coordinates in your machine, and there's some areas that you can actually get deeper, a little deeper than 120 foot and still keep grouper if you're inside that open area. So you can kind of play that game a little bit. It seems like gags are starting to come back. Do you think they'll be a little bit more generous with the regs this year? No. We've talked about that pretty in depth the last couple shows. Gag grouper season this year is probably going to be about 7 days. 7, 8, maybe 9 days. Shorter than last year. We talked about in depth why a couple episodes ago, but essentially The gag grouper quota is in a rebuilding plan. So we started with a very small quota. Every year that quota gets bigger. So our quota for 2025 was supposed to be like almost 400,000 pounds, which would have given us like 35, 40 days in 2025. It should have started September 1st and been almost the whole month of September. But unfortunately, in the 15 days during 2024 that gags were open, the data is saying that we overfished red grouper by 100,000 pounds. So that means there's a payback in 2025. That means our quota is significantly diminished. Instead of like almost 400,000 pounds, with the payback, we only have like 210,000 pounds. And they're saying we caught 270,000 pounds in 15 days. So if you caught 270,000 pounds in 15 days, and we only got 210,000 pounds this year, and they really want to make sure we don't go over so we can get 40 or 45 days in 2026, I would imagine, guesstimate off the top of my head, back of the napkin math, that we'll probably have 6, 7, 8, 9 days this year. But that'll be finalized, and all those numbers that I just told you and all that information is all preliminary. So it could change. I don't see it changing very much, if at all, but it could change. But all that will be finalized closer to April. So stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date. But we're expecting red grouper to close around end of May. We're expecting amberjack September and October. We're expecting triggerfish open all year except for January, February, June, and July. We're expecting red snapper to open June 1st and be open until probably into September. We're expecting gags to open September for about a week. What's your favorite flatline bait? Depends. To start, we just use frozen threadfin a lot of times because we don't have any live flatline bait. And then through the day, we'll catch some flatline bait while we're bottom fishing, like a blue runner. Spot tails sometimes work really well. Or we'll sabiki rig for some live sardines or some hardtails, that kind of thing. So it depends. Is there a microwave on the 39-hour boat? Yes and no. There is a microwave available on the boat, but we're often utilizing the galley and cooking. So there's not like an extra microwave for you to use anytime that you want. So you want to bring food that you can eat without microwaving if you're going on a 39-hour trip. But you can use the microwave at certain times when the galley is available. You just got to kind of talk to the galley cook and be patient and work around their schedule because the galley is unfortunately a little small area and we're trying to pump out food for everybody on the boat. So during peak meal times, it's a little hard to get in there and microwave your own food, right? So if you don't have a meal package, you're not eating the hot prepared food out of the galley. You want to make sure it's food that you can just pop open and eat. But we do have a microwave, and you can use it at certain times. It's just you can't go into it thinking, oh, I can use the microwave whenever I want, because that's not necessarily the case, right? How are trolling spots assigned? There are no assigned trolling spots. So it's a bottom fishing trip, and we're going bottom fishing. So the goal of those trips is to get out there and bottom fish. Trolling is just something that you can do while the boat's moving, but you need a really big reel, like an 80 wide or a 50 wide, 2-speed, and people in the stern that have stern fishing spots for bottom fishing have first right refusal to troll. Most people don't. So there's oftentimes people who are fishing along the side or bow of the boat for bottom fishing that will come back there and find a spot to troll on the way out or between spots. You just have to be courteous to those around you, kind of maybe do the courteous of asking the person, and if, hey, can I use your fishing spot while we're trolling, because you're not using it right. It generally works itself out. So there are no assigned spots. Oh, man. What?
That's the third comment I got.
About what?
The grouper.
I wasn't reading that. I was reading something else. What was the question about grouper?
How did we catch 1 million pounds in 15 days?
Oh, it wasn't 1 million pounds. They said we caught, I'll pull up the exact numbers. Remember, we didn't use MREP FES numbers this year. It's really technical, so I don't want to go super far into it, but this year we are managed under SURFs, which is a state refish data. It wasn't MREP FES. It wasn't MREP Coastal Household Telephone Survey, so they actually use state data and state landings to manage our federal fisheries. first time ever, set precedents. It's pretty interesting stuff. Let me pull this up here. Fisheries. Gulf Council meeting. So, as far as gags, so they said we caught 270,000 pounds, not 1,000,000 pounds. And 111,000 pounds were charter boat landings through MRIP. 4,000 pounds was headboat landings. 160,000 pounds was private recreational angler landings. And there was 4,000 pounds from LA Creole, which is another state survey from Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. So that makes up approximately 270,000 pounds. And again, this is preliminary data, right? So this can change. So they didn't say 1,000,000 pounds in 15 days, which would have been heinous and unbelievable. They said 270,000 pounds. And when you think about everybody going out there gag grouper fishing, it seems a little bit more believable, but still, it's a tough pill to swallow. And it's all estimated, right? These are estimations. These are surveys. So it's always a tough pill to swallow when you see a fishery cut short like that because of these estimates. So recreational data is definitely a problem. Are you brining baits on the 39-hour trips? When we can get the thread fins fresh, we do have fresh bait brined up at the back of the boat. When we can't get thread fins fresh, we will not. Generally, this time of year, it's going to be really hard to get fresh thread fins. The way the water is, the way water temperatures are. Once it starts to warm up, especially during red snapper season, we'll have that fresh bait more often. Let's see. Is changing the name of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America going to change any pelagic permits, reef fish or pelagic permits? No, because the Gulf of Mexico, when it comes to permits, fisheries permits, remember there's 8 councils that, I can't go that far back, we're out of time. MSA, Madison-Stevens Act, governs federal fisheries, and the MSA was created in 1976 through an act of Congress. And that act of Congress designated the Gulf of Mexico Management Council, the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council, and that Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council governs the Gulf of Mexico fishery. This was done in 1976 through an act of Congress. Those Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council folks, over time, designated these federal permits, and your federal permits, your federal fisheries permits say Gulf of Mexico. So if you go on the Friendly Fisherman this Thursday on a 10-hour trip, we'll have a brand new Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard certificate of inspection. It will say on that Coast Guard certificate of inspection, Gulf of America, because it's going to be a brand new certificate of inspection issued by the United States Coast Guard. It'll get issued to us hopefully Tuesday morning. So that brand new Coast Guard certificate of inspection is going to say Gulf of America. If you go over to our federal fisheries permit, it's going to say Gulf of Mexico, because according to the Act of Congress and the Magnuson-Stevens Act, it's Gulf of Mexico. So it'll take a whole act of Congress to try to affect our permits or change anything with our permits. But currently, Ted Cruz is the chair of the Natural Resources Committee, and there is an appetite potentially to open up MSA to reauthorization. It's only been reauth twice, 2006 and 2014, since it was created in 1976. So if they open it in D.C. to reauthorization, potentially they could change the name as well. Who knows? And hopefully do some other stuff. All right. So we got a lot more questions. We tried to get as many as we could in there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show tonight. And hopefully we will see you again in the future. I do have to let you guys know, hate to disappoint, but next week we will not have a live stream show, unfortunately. I am going out of town with family. But that is the last show we're going to miss for a very, very long time. Football season's over. There's no more Super Bowls. And I don't have any other plans scheduled that's going to affect our live show. So We are going to miss next week. No live show next week, but every Sunday night at 7:30 p.m., except for next week, we'll be doing this live show. So hopefully we'll see you every Sunday night at 7:30 p.m., except for next week for this live stream show. Hopefully you enjoy, hopefully you had a good time, and hopefully helped you learn a little something. Our supporters after show will kick off at what time, Josh?
45.
That's ambitious. Are you sure? All right. 8:45 supporters after show. So join us for supporters after show in 5 minutes. It's going to be a good time. We're going to talk more about the fishing, answer your questions, and always have a good time in the supporters group. Remember, it's less than $5 a month. You get access to our private group, our private page. It's a ton of fun. So check it out. Thanks for being a part of our Hubbard's Marina family. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show tonight. Hopefully we'll see you again in the future. And don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. All right, so our 39-hour giveaway is time now to find out who won that 39-hour giveaway. But first, we want to give a shout out to our friends over at Innovative Pools and Spa. Innovative Pools and Spa brings you 35 years experience building pools in the Tampa Bay area. They continue the legacy of their father's company as recognized as a top pool builder in the Tampa Bay area. Plus, they continue to raise the bar in pool construction, design, and features. They have an unparalleled passion for the industry. So call them today at 727-788-1650 or visit them online at innovativepoolsandspa.net for an estimate. See why Innovative Pools and Spa is a top choice for people in our community. Plus, they do a 39-hour giveaway, so you can't beat that. Let's see who won the 39-hour trip. For one lucky winner is Dallas Morris from Winter Haven, Imperial Polk County, for the win tonight. Congrats, Dallas. You got 5 minutes or less to claim your free trip by texting us. We'll see all our supporters and our supporters after show. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks for another episode of the live stream show. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Y'all have a good one. See ya.